Alrighty, welcome back. Today we are talking about prop firms, which is one of the most understood things in the futures trading industry. We want to really explain what they are and how they work. It took me a while to figure out how they actually worked so that you guys can have a good understanding of them and be able to use them well. They're a really great resource, especially being able to start out with like low capital and not being able to risk it. This is what you can actually use instead of taking thousands of dollars of your own money and throwing it into a brokerage account and potentially losing it all. You can use these prop firms to lower your risk significantly instead. So let's dive in. So basically, you get to trade a firm's capital instead of your own, like I just talked about. You pay a small fee to get access to an account and evaluation, which essentially is something you need to pass. You need to be able to prove you can make a profit in the futures markets. And then once you have proven that you can make a profit, you get a funded account, which can put you on the path to actually getting real funding and real payouts from these firms and starting to make an actual profit in your trading career. So let's talk about how they actually work. So typically, prop firms have a three-step, three-tier model. The first stage is the evaluation. This is what you start out with when you purchase an account. You have to prove that you can be profitable by reaching a certain profit target. It's usually 6% without losing too much. So essentially just proving you can be profitable and then actually like demonstrating that on a simulated eval. And then the second stage, once you pass that evaluation, you'll get a funded account that is still simulated, but you can get real payouts from it, meaning that you are looking at and trading real market data like live futures markets. You are actually watching them and analyzing them and trading them. It's just that the capital is still simulated. However, if you follow their rules and make enough profit, you can get real payouts from these funded accounts. And then ultimately, if you are performing well and you are consistent and you are getting, say, 3 to 5 payouts, it depends on the firm. They'll look at your performance and how you're doing as a trader and eventually move you to live, which is a very small group of people make it to live, but that is the ultimate goal. It means that you are getting real capital to trade with from the firm. You get real live capital, and your orders are actually hitting the futures markets. They're real orders, and all of the profit that you make is real profit, which also means that you get more of it because it's real, essentially. This is the ultimate stage. This is what I'm working towards myself um, to get from that sim funded to the live funded. Uh, so, yeah, let's look at these three stages closer. So, the evaluation, the objective is just to hit a profit target um, while following their rules and not losing too much. So, on a typical 50K account, you'll buy it and it starts at a balance of 50K, and you have to hit 6%, which is 3K. So the profit target is 53,000, and that's the balance you have to hit to pass the account. And then the maximum loss limit is typically 4% on a 50K, which is 2K, which means that it's 48,000. This chart is of the first eval I ever passed on Top Step. Um, a really good week. This is probably not very common, but it was just a good winning streak to do it in 5 days. But So essentially, we started at 50K, and you got to get to 53K to pass, and that maximum loss limit will follow you up until it hits the balance you started at originally, which also simulates how the funded accounts work. And then there's a ton of different prop firms, which we'll look at in a minute, but there are all sorts of different types of accounts that have different rules, consistency rules, whatever, that you just have to look at. I mean, when you get the account, but I'll recommend a couple of them. But yeah, essentially, eval, hit the profit target. It's the main goal. And then you will get to stage 2, which is the sim funded. The objective is to make profit while following their rules to earn payouts. Some of the common rule sets for different types of accounts, one of them is benchmark days, meaning that 5 days you have to make this much at least per day, which shows consistency to get a payout. So maybe 5 days you get $300, and then you will be eligible for a payout, assuming that you are still in profit, because this includes losing days. And then another type of account is a consistency rule, meaning that your biggest day cannot be more than 40% of your total profit. So that means you can't just have one really big day and then a bunch of little tiny days. So yeah, that can get you payouts sooner, but also you need to be able to consistently make like more in a day, but not too much. So you got to kind of pick and choose your rules. All the accounts have different rules that you got to really decide what works for you and figure that out. But yeah, there's a lot of different accounts out there. And then once you get a handful, say 3 to 5, probably 5 being the most, of payouts on simulated accounts, the firm will look at your performance and most likely move you to a live account, which means that you are officially live funded. The objective is to trade the firm's live capital and earn technically unlimited payouts as long as you have the account. So say it's a 50K, you get 50K real buying power, real capital, and then you want to build that account up to a buffer, and then you can start taking payouts. And then as long as you keep that account alive and keep it growing, you can get typically it's a 90-10 split. So you get 90% to the trader and 10% to the firm. So yeah, if you get to the live account, I mean, you're already very profitable, consistently profitable. So just protect the account, build a buffer, and grow it to, I mean, don't rush it, but get unlimited payouts, essentially, as long as you have the account. But also, this structure I've had a hard time understanding because most people that get payouts are doing it on the simulated accounts, and I was really trying to figure out where that money comes from. So let's see like how that actually works. So how do the prop firms make money? They make money mostly from the account fees, which surprised me, rather than the live funded profit split, which is only 10%, which is not very much. This is because, like we talked about in our very first video, the failure rate is very high. So these are all approximate. About 90% of anyone who buys an eval never passes it, never passes one. So that is the vast majority. People who just buy one, just check it out because they heard about it or saw it on social media. They buy it, blow the account, and then never come back. Or people who just don't really have a working system, they don't journal, they're not disciplined. They kind of just gamble or treat it like a casino, and then they just give up. or people who really just do give up. It took me a lot of failures to be able to pass my first eval. You have to be willing to fail to get out of that 90%. Uh, so the 90% um, failure rate times however many evals they buy is a lot of profit for the prop firm, which is how they can afford to pay out so many people in the simulated fundeds. So like just this giant pool of people, they all buy like one or a handful of evals. That adds up to a lot of revenue. But then they're also paying out on the simulated accounts. It's just that the account fees total outweighs the simulated. So in case you're wondering how it actually works, where the money's coming from, it's from the account fees. That's kind of the secret of how these work. Then I skipped a slide. This is just a general list of rules to know. Profit target. This is just for an eval. You're trying to hit a certain amount, a certain threshold. 6% on a 50K is 3K. 6% on 100K is 6K. And then on 150K is 9K, and so on. 250K, 15K profit target. It's very common. I don't think I've seen any accounts that weren't like exactly 6%. The maximum loss limit, though, does vary. The most I've seen is 4%. So on 50K, it is a 2K loss limit. But then I've noticed that the bigger the accounts get, the lower percentage it is. So it's like a bigger account, but it's a worse ratio of profit target to maximum loss limit. So that is something to keep in mind. The 50Ks, or maybe even the 25Ks, have the best um, profit target to maximum loss limit, ratio. And then another thing that you'll probably see when you're looking at different accounts is a trailing versus end of day drawdown, which is something to keep in mind. The trailing drawdown means that your maximum loss limit will slowly follow your account balance, but the trailing versus end of day is how it does it. So trailing is it'll track your unrealized gains, which means that if you are up $1,000 in a trade, your maximum loss limit will follow that up $1,000. Usually this won't be super important, but say you go up a bunch and then you hit a break even on a trade. At the end of the day, your account balance is the same, except that with the trailing drawdown, it will have followed it up $1,000 and it'll stay there. Whereas with the end of day drawdown, it will just not move at all. So something to keep in mind, end of day is better. So that's just when you're picking an account, know that. Some accounts have a daily loss limit. Like for a 50K, I've seen like a 1,200 daily loss limit. I guess it's just so you don't blow it in one losing day. That's pretty self-explanatory. The consistency rule, that's very common on an evals. On evals, I've seen it typically be like 50% if there is one. So meaning you cannot pass it in one day, except some accounts you can. That is also something to look at when you are picking and choosing what you want to get. It just means that for whatever you are trying to get to, whether that be a profit target or to get to a payout, whatever the percentage is, your biggest day cannot be bigger than that percentage. Benchmark days we talked about, that's just to get a payout. You have to have, it's usually 5 benchmark days, which means that you hit a certain number in the green, a certain number of times to be eligible for payout. Contract limit / max lot, which means how much size you can have on a 50K. It is typically going to be 5 minis or 50 micros, or sometimes 4 minis of 40 micros, and then just so on. 100K is typically 8 to 10 minis, or 80 to 100 micros, but you should never be using that much size anyway. If you're using your maximum size, that's not good risk management. That's kind of just gambling. Um, Buffer is common on the fundeds where you have to start at this amount, build up to here. That's your safety buffer to prevent it from blowing it, and then you can make profit from there to get payouts above that buffer. So say like on a 50K, you make on certain accounts, you make a 2K buffer on the funded, and then you can get payouts from profit you make from then on. It's helpful to just prevent from blowing the account, but some firms force you to do it. And then news restrictions, not super common, but sometimes when there's like big news events like wars or certain straits that carry a lot of oil closing down, um, prop firms will lower the amount of size you can have on certain markets. It's often commodities like oil or gold or silver. You'll see like your maximum lot has been lowered for a time. It's typically just with commodities though that I've seen. So not something you'll hardly ever have to worry about. And then this website, Prop Firm Match, is super helpful, especially when you're looking towards like what firm do you even want to use? What do people think of it? And like, is it a good prop firm? Should I trade with them? So let's take a look at that. This is a great resource. You'll see there's a lot of futures prop firms out there. I haven't even heard of some of these. But at the top is my favorite, which is Lucid Trading. It's the one that I am on now, along with a couple others. And then also Top Step is the name of the prop firm that we started on. It's good for certain things. Top Step was the original kind of futures for prop firm. They kind of pioneered the modern like structure of it. But then a lot of other firms have come and like kind of copied that. So they got booted down to sixth place, at least ranked on this website. So yeah, you can come here and see what people think of it. And you can also see what platforms they have. Lucid has TradingView, TradeC, Trade8, TradeC. TopStep has TopStep X, which is their own platform, which is very similar to TradingView and TradeC. I actually really like using TopStep X, but I like TradeC a little bit more. So this is where you can come and kind of find prop firms, but I'm going to show you a couple. So let's look at TopStep. Here's their website. They have paid out $1.4 billion in total in payouts, which is crazy. That's from like since 2012 though, so that's over like 14 years. But let's look at how it works. So you can see here, kind of got the three stages. They call their eval the combine, and then they call their sim funded the express funded, and then here's their live funded. Three tiers laid out right there. Fancy little hexagons. So there's the trading combine, express funded, and live funded. So that's the three-tier structure right there. And then let's also look at Lucid Trading. They have more variety. Here's Lucid Flex is what I would recommend, especially because it's a little cheaper, but also just look through all the rules. You gotta figure out what works with you, what you prefer, just what you want to do, what rules you want to deal with. But see the 50K here, $3,000 profit target, $2,000 maximum loss limit. There's that end of day drawdown, that's the good one. Consistency, 50%, meaning that you can pass in as soon as 2 days. No 1 day pass, which means that you can have a 1500 day and 1500 day, and that's the fastest you could possibly pass. But I wouldn't shoot for that. I'd shoot for more consistent small wins, especially as you're getting started out. On Top Step, okay, I'm not logging into that. Top Step is $50 for a combine, which is much cheaper. However, there is an activation fee, which is something to be aware of. I started out on Top Step, which was great because it was like $49 technically for a combine for an eval, and I failed a lot to start. We both did. We blew a lot of evals before we got funded and got our first payouts. So if you kind of want to, I don't know, play around with it more, trade more, maybe go for Top Step to start out with just because the evals are cheaper. Or if you want to just like kind of, I mean, you should start out paper trading, but paper trading just can't simulate like the emotions and like the psychology of it. Like this actually matters now because you can go reset your paper trading account, like whatever, doesn't matter. But when you buy your first eval, that's kind of when it like really starts. You'll hear a lot that psychology is super important in trading, and it is. We'll talk about that more later. But yeah, Top Step, cheaper evals, but there is a $150 activation fee. So it just means that you could have cheaper evals, but you gotta pay for it more when you actually pass. And then Lucid, you'll see that this is much more expensive. Lucid always has discount codes. If you can't find a discount code, message us and I'd be very surprised if I couldn't find one because they always have discounts. I think that's also a marketing trick to like make you want to buy it sooner because you'll think it goes away, but it doesn't go away. Sometimes they're just less. But you'll see here, account activation fee is free, meaning that the eval is more expensive. So that if you blow more evals, it'll be more expensive for you. Except that when you pass, it'll be cheaper. So Top Step, cheap evals, but there is an activation fee. Lucid, more expensive evals, but there is no activation fee. So after paper trading, if you're more confident, I would recommend going in with Lucid. Also, when you buy a Lucid account, I would recommend going through Rhythmic routing instead of Trade-Evade, just because that's what gets you on TradeC. It's actually if you want TradeC, which if you haven't heard enough, we really recommend TradeC. You go here, connect new, you can see all the prop firms that you can use with it. So Lucid Trading, Tradify, I've heard good things about, and then all these other ones. So yeah. Anyway, you guys just have to go through and look at these accounts for yourself and like really see them and read all the rules because you might even find a better one. But these are just the ones that we have experience with. There's also the Pro that's more expensive, but that's a whole different set of rules. I'd recommend the Flex when you're starting out. But yeah. Okay, and if it hasn't been stated already, you do have to be at least 18 years old to trade, or at least I should say, the person whose name is on the account has to be 18. Do with that what you will. I don't know who all is in this or how old you all are, but just keep that in mind. Whoever the account is under has to be an adult. Also, I'll just talk about how many tries it took us. I think I passed my 7th eval, so we failed a lot. We want to try to kind of expedite your guys' journeys in this, so that maybe you don't fail 6 evals before you pass. But just be willing to fail. I might not be saying that in the best way, but just don't let like failure be like a big deal. It happens. There was one morning, it was some random Thursday morning in like January or February where I blew 3 evals in one morning, back to back to back. It was pretty rough, but that was just bad decision making because we were definitely over leveraging. Trying to take shortcuts. Don't take shortcuts. That's another lesson that we have learned. Yeah, don't gamble evals. I mean, just treat it kind of like you would treat an actual funded account. Don't like max size, full port, whatever, or just go in randomly, trading off hopes and dreams. We've done that too. We've done it all. And then also a common thing that happens is you pass an account and then you blow it immediately. We've also done that. Or I guess we got our first payouts and then we both blew our first fundeds immediately after getting a payout. Because that's kind of a vulnerability window when your like account balance suddenly cuts in half. You are way closer than you realize to your maximum loss limit. Something to keep in mind. And yeah, these prop firms are a really great resource, especially as like a teenager starting out. You can get access to potentially 7 figures in funding, which is insane. So it's really great for someone who has low capital or doesn't want to risk a bunch of their own capital. You can buy an eval or a handful of evals, pass that, and then get payouts, and then just scale from there. That's what we're working on right now. Getting more accounts. We've got fundeds and handfuls of evals that we're working on. But also the market conditions have not been great lately. Especially NQ. It's been chopping around a little bit, but it looks like it is improving. Friday was a little bit better. It's getting better. So I'm hoping that price action will improve significantly by the time you guys start trading. Because we started in like January. It's pretty good for a couple months until a war started. And then it kind of started going crazy. But yeah, hoping for good conditions soon. And it looks like we might have those maybe like for this fall and rest of this year. I think that's about all I have for this video. Just trying to help you guys get a good understanding of what prop firms are and how they work and how we use them. We use them as tools. Treat it like a business, not like a casino. But yeah, we want to teach you guys how to be part of this 10%. Oh, I didn't even talk about this. Yeah, 10% approximately of all people who ever buy an eval pass it. And then if you get one payout, you're like already in the top slice, which I had a really hard time believing because, I mean, it's not like extremely difficult, but also it took us a lot of tries. But still, it's just took having some room to fail and then not giving up and then we made it to, we are already in this top slice here, uh, which is kind of crazy. But then we just got to keep going, keep being consistent, and hopefully we'll go pretty well. We're hoping to get you guys there too. So, yeah, if you have any questions, ask us questions. If there's anything I didn't explain in this video or you want me to explain more, just reach out in the chat or, yeah, whatever questions you have or whatever else. I think that's it for the foundations. Now you understand like the basics of trading and what we actually trade with, which is prop firms. And now we can start getting into actual market structure stuff in our upcoming videos. Like actually how to analyze the markets, how to be a good trader. Yeah, should be good. Should be speeding up now. Next video is about trading sessions. So, forward to that. All right. See you guys in the next video.